So I get asked this question all the time, Seth, who are your mentors? A lot of people say, who were your mentors? But I don't think that's really accurate. I would think the majority of my mentors, I have several, I actually counted 6. And most of these I'm still obviously in contact with, and I get a lot of information from, and they really help me to this day. So, I don't think a mentor necessarily, involves like you're a Hawaiian or you're a young person and you have a mentor. I think that is probably the most important mentor. But as you progress and as you, want to accomplish more things, other people will really influence you at various stages in your life. So I've counted like 6 or 7 here, and I'm going to start with my most important mentor, and that's Emory Robinson. Emory Robinson was the owner of Edgewood Coin Company in Jacksonville, Florida, where I grew up. And it's interesting to think back. It's so long ago, right? But I worked there for 5 years, from 1984 to 1989, or 85 to 1990, somewhere around there. But it all started, one of the things that got me collecting coins was my father. He was like he was a general contractor, and I remember he was building these restrooms on a little island called Little Tablet Island on the coast of northern Florida. And I remember I was obsessed with like walking up and down. I'd look for snakes and animals and things like that. And I was obsessed with finding shark's teeth, and actually accumulated hundreds of them. But one day I found a coin on the beach, and it was a dateless standing Liberty quarter. And I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. And I remember, always just being mesmerized by it. And I went out, and Edgewood Coin Company was about 2 miles from where I lived in Jacksonville. And my father and I went in there one time, and I was probably like 8 years old. And we showed him the coin, and they go, oh, it's just like worth the silver value. This is like the date range. They were very helpful. His name was Jerry, who used to work there. And Jerry was actually like a mini mentor for me. And so that was that. I didn't get hooked on coins right away. I was still a little bit of a collector. I'd put together like Blue Whitman albums when I was like 5 and 6, collected bicentennial quarters, but I wasn't really hooked yet. But I remember like a year or two later, I was at the bookstore, and there was a magazine, Coin Age magazine or Coins magazine. They had the cover of the Stand Liberty quarter on the cover. And so, I bought it and really got interested. And I would say when I got to 6th grade is when I went all in, because I had a few friends in my class that were collecting coins. And I remember that's when I would go to Edgewood and, buy coins. I remember my first coin, 1943 steel cent, and uncirculated. That was my first coin I ever bought. But what was interesting is, I became a little bit obsessive, like a lot of young numismatists. And I'd say it started when I was 10, 11. Back in Florida, you blink, you close your eyes during the summer, your grass grows and you need to cut it. So I would make like $5 to $10 per lawn that I would mow, and then I would use that money, go over to Edgewood and buy a coin. Then we'd share it with my friends at school and stuff like that. So it was really fun. It got a lot more serious, I would say, when I was like 13, 14-ish, because I applied for a scholarship to the ANA, and I eventually won a summer seminar scholarship. But when I went to Edgewood, I never really worked with Emory Robinson. He was the owner. He was always on the other side of the shop, always busy, always moving around fast. But I don't even think I even had an interaction with him, because it was a very good sized coin shop for back then, probably 7 or 8 employees. So I usually worked with a gentleman named Larry or a woman named Kathy. She was really cool. But I remember I wanted to get a job. And I went through Jerry, and he's like, okay, the owner said maybe or yes or no. It was something like I had to come back a few times. I was persistent, all right? Persistence always pays off. And I remember once I won that scholarship day in a summer seminar, I brought the letter. I'll never forget this. It was like 100 degrees that day, humid as hell. Do you guys remember Docksiders, Topsiders? That was very popular in the 80s. So I wore my nice shoes, my Docksiders, without socks. And it was 2 miles walk. They were my brand new shoes, and I got so many blisters. I just really wanted a job. I really wanted to work at Edgewood Coin Company. And he said, okay, why don't you, he was impressed that I won the scholarship. And so he says, when you come back, why don't we talk about you working here for the summer? So I went there, came back. And I remember my job interview was really interesting, because they had just introduced the grade of MS-64. And at the time it was like 60, 63, 65, and 67. And they introduced 64, and he had a B roll of Morgans. He's like, grade those. Okay, so I just kind of stacked them. These are the MS-60s, these are 63s, these are 4s and 5s. He was, okay, you're hired. And again, I was like 13 or 14 years old. So I learned so many things at Edgewood Coin Company, so many things. I would say the first thing I really learned a lot, and it was almost kind of irritating, because everyone just kept talking about what a wonderful company Edgewood was and how wonderful Mr. Robinson was. And when you're 14, you're like, yeah, let's just talk coins, right? And so I learned the value of really focusing on your reputation and having a great reputation, which, it carries me in today. He taught me just by example. And I would say the most critical thing that Mr. Robinson did for me as a mentor is that he gave me very serious responsibilities at a very young age. So I would be out there helping people. I'd be selling coins, I'd be buying coins from people. Anytime a big collection would come in, they'd kind of sit down in this office, he'd always call me to grade the coins and help out. Like when you're 14 years old and there's a grown man, the owner of the coin shop that's running a very big business and there's a lot of money involved and they're relying on your opinion of things, that was very, very impactful. And that's why here, when we hire interns, we have them selling them all. No, we don't care. We'll have them help them the show. We give them real responsibilities that if they fail at them, not only they're gonna learn a lot, there's real consequences. So they gotta learn. And so that's one thing that I've taken from my experiences at Edgewood. But Mr. Robinson was just so cool and so nice. And I learned the value of hard work. Like there were many, many times when we'd be there till like midnight at 1 a.m. like on a Friday or Saturday night, because I think I started out working on Friday and Saturdays. And then I was like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I went to Robert E. Lee High, which is like a mile away, so I'd walk there after school. And I remember my pay was $3.35 an hour. And I never really took that much pay because I always buy coins. And I was always in debt, always like, okay, I owe whatever, $800 for these 3 coins, and I'd write it down on a piece of paper, how many hours I worked times $3.35. That was my pay, that's what got deducted off. So I worked, pretty much everything went to coins. But you learned how things flowed, you learned about how to actually run a business, how to interact with people, how to keep it moving, how to buy and sell things, how to focus on your reputation, how to shoot straight with people, just straight out. And obviously how to talk college football, because that's all they did was talk college football. But we would go to coin shows, and again, being at his young age and just hear him talk about me to other grown people about how good I am and all this stuff, it was really, really helped out my confidence as a young person. And it's really kind of the cornerstone of Witter, why we kind of hire a lot of young people and stuff and give them shots. We'll give everybody a shot, but definitely I think when adults pay attention to younger people, I think it makes an impact. I think a mentorship thing is very, very important. It was interesting because I took over WitterCoin in 2016. And Mr. Robinson was a regular at the Baltimore show, so we would kind of share a table and stuff. So he saw a little bit of our growth, but unfortunately he passed away about 2019. I went down to Florida for his funeral. Sad times, I wish he could see what we're doing now. It'd be really cool. I know he's watching down from upstairs for sure, but just a great man, a real man. They don't make them like that anymore. And at the time he had started Edgewood Coin Company in 1963. So he'd already been in business 25 years, and that's just a very, very impressive thing. And then, he added on another 30 years. I mean, that's just 50-something years ran his business. And, just as an update, every time I go back home to Jacksonville, Sarah Robinson is his granddaughter, and, her and a couple of her sisters are running the whole show, and it's very, very impressive what she's doing. She's in her mid-20s, but she's running a monstrous, thriving coin shop. So, but, definitely Mr. Robinson instilled really good values in me. A lot of responsibility, taught me so much about business. Most things I learned about business I learned from Mr. Robinson when I was a teenager. So there we go. There's mentor number 1 and easily the most important one. Thanks for listening. Bye.